So my video cut off right at the end. I was at the end of source B, and I was just looking at the final things I wanted to mention with regards to the surfing. So I've got here, is it always afternoon here, I wonder? The sea was so blue, the sunlight so soft, the air so sweet. Okay, there was no toil, clang or hurry. This is really nice because what we've got here is a repetition. So blue, so soft, the air. We've got an asyndetic list. An asyndetic list. And the repetition or diacope of so. What I would say about so is that it's an intensifier, which means it makes it more. So that's a nice word to use. It's a type of word. So if you say it's really difficult, it's very annoying, it's too tricky, these are intensifying the adjective. So soft, not just soft, so soft, it intensifies it. So that's good. This is really giving a positive impression of the atmosphere, not necessarily the surfing, but maybe the environment in which these people are surfing is really positive. So you could still link that to surfing if you made it very clear what you meant. Oh, the atmosphere is really beautiful. There's no noise. Toil is work, clang, noise, or hurry. Everyone's relaxed and chilled. This all makes the entire experience of surfing really positive. And then she calls the shores enchanted, which is a lovely word, which kind of implies magical. We've also got serene, tropical. So we've probably got a semantic field here of tranquility, beauty, anything like that. And as long as we explain how we're linking that to surfing, that demonstrates that the writer feels really positively about the experience because of the atmosphere. Alright, so we go to our question 4, and I'm going to do a very quick plan of A and B and start to think. Now, there's 2 ways that you can make your comparisons in a question 4. One is you can compare the views, so you can say they've got different perspectives on the surfing, but you can also compare the methods, so you can make comparisons about the methods. They both use this technique, they don't use that technique. So if we sort of have a little think about how each person feels, they're actually pretty similar. Okay, now I wonder whether this is actually the best thing to do. Now that I've done it, I've just kind of thought I actually want to make some similarities as well. So sometimes what can work better is we do it like that. So you have 3 and you have similarities in the middle, and then you have A and B. So it could be, don't worry about this because I'll come back to this, it could be that you put in a similarity that they think that surfing is exciting, like both writers feel that surfing is an exciting sport, and you say, but source A thinks it's exciting from a personal approach. For example, he's the person actually surfing, whereas source B feels like it's exciting from a spectator's approach because it's not actually her that's surfing, she's watching it. But what I find stressful about doing it this way is that I'm worried I'm not going to include my methods, and that's like super important because this is where I get to show off all my knowledge about techniques, so I don't want to forget to do that. So what I tend to do is maybe right in the middle across here, and that's why I wish I'd not put that line, but okay, what's done is done. So I might want to write in the middle, they both find it exciting, and then I could do it's personal. Then I need to use a technique here. So how does he do it in a personal way? Well, what he did to show that he really is excited by the surfing is that he uses a semantic field, because he says things like I was plotting, I was waiting, I was pestering, and all of this is showing that he's excited by the sport. So I would say, right, so we've got a semantic field, that's just my shorthand of excitement. Yeah. or eagerness. Did I say? I said eagerness. I want to go with eagerness. I don't want to use the same word all the time. Right, semantic field of eagerness. Now let me think then on source B. It's not a personal, it's a spectator, it's an onlooker. It's somebody in the crowd. Now, what does she use? Bird. What does bird use? So then I'll have a look back. And I'll think, well, actually, when she's spectating, she's talking about cheers and laughter and shouts. Now that's really good because that's also a semantic field, but this time we've probably got a semantic field of enjoyment. Now this is really tricky, but it's how I think you access the top marks on this, is that you think to yourself, we think about it in my classroom like a coat hanger, because I'm yet to find an object that is similar to this. If you can help me, I'd be very grateful. This is a coat hanger, badly drawn, not an art teacher. It starts together in the middle and it splits off into two different ideas. And that is how I like to do my comparison essays. So if I'm comparing poems in literature or sources in paper 2, I like to bring it together to begin with and then split it off. So I can say, well, they're both showing excitement, but one shows it personal, one shows it as a spectator. They both show excitement, but one, source A, shows it as a personal excitement. Source B shows it as a spectator excitement. Another way of doing it is that you do it through techniques. Right, so let's see how that would work here. I would say, well, actually, both writers show their excitement through semantic fields. Both writers show excitement through semantic fields. That is a joint thing. They both do it, like literally think of it together like that. Source A does semantic field, source B does semantic field together. But then we split it off because this one uses a semantic field of eagerness because it's a personal experience. And this side uses a semantic field of enjoyment because it's a spectator experience. So you say something similar and then you do something different. Okay, and I do think that really shows that you have made detailed perceptive links between the texts, because you're saying, well, they're the same, but they're actually not the same. And that's a lot harder. It's very easy to say, well, they're both the same. They both talk about happiness, the end. It's actually harder to say, well, they both use semantic fields, but different types and for different reasons. And you might be able to do this with your poetry as well. So you might say, for example, Extract from the Prelude and Storm on the Island both use personification, but one does it in a feminine way, led by her, and another does it in a more melancholy way, raise a tragic chorus in a gale. Something like that, or oxymorons. They both use oxymorons, but Wordsworth does it with Trouble to My Dreams, which demonstrates the pain he's feeling, and actually Seamus Heaney does it through a huge nothing that we fear, which is sort of explaining his, maybe the futility of the Troubles. So, I really like this, doing it that way. But you can make a comment, you make a link on anything. It can be that it's the theme, it's the idea, or it might be the technique. So I'm going to go with my next one being that they actually both use hyperbole. Okay, so source A uses hyperbole kind of all the way through, but specifically with dash to pieces. So maybe with the threat or the danger. If I wanted to in my plan, I could write quotes if I'm scared I'm going to forget them. But I don't think I need to, because when I look at my extract, I go, oh, there's hyperbole, and look, I've done a little arrow, dash to pieces. So I don't actually need to rewrite out my plan for the quote, because my annotations are so detailed, I can just find it that way. Although I've just realised that's source B. Oh, wow. So I can just put an arrow there. So that's that one. And then with source A, he uses hyperbole too. And so I just need to find where that is. Oh, I've done it there. I've said he says it feeling in my bones. So I can say, right, he also uses hyperbole with his feelings of commitment. And notice that I'm thinking about feelings all the time. I'm thinking about feelings of enjoyment, feelings of eagerness, feelings of commitment, feelings of danger, because that's what the question's about. It's about how the writer feels, their perspective. Okay, All right. Now, if I don't want to match here, I'm pretty pleased with myself because I've matched techniques. I don't have to do that. So I could say, well, actually, source A uses a metaphor when it talks about in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. Because I wrote that here. Now, bearing in mind, I would never want to write 2 paragraphs that are about the same quote, but I might choose one over the other. I might think, well, actually, I prefer metaphors. I'd rather write about that. The feeling in my bones would be metaphorical. And I might say that that shows a feeling of commitment. Like I said, I've done that on the wrong side, obviously. So it could be commitment. I'm trying to think of a different word, or maybe addiction. And then I might say, well, actually, source B doesn't use a metaphor. It uses a simile, and it talks about how the surfers are bobbing like corks, which kind of shows the feelings of skill and joy and avoiding danger are shown. So there isn't necessarily a link between the two. Only that I could say that there's kind of a positive feeling for sure. I could say, they're both quite positive about surfing. But this one's more to do with the commitment, addiction, desperation to do it, and this one's to do with the kind of respect for the surfers. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, actually, I can make a link between metaphors and similes, and you would be right. And the way that you could do that is you call it figurative language. We don't have to do that. We do not have to do that. I like to do that. I think it's cleverer. I think it demonstrates I'm really perceptive. I've thought about things that are the same, things that are different. I've said, well, it's the same in some ways, but then it splits off. And that shows that I've really had a detailed think. That's my plan. All right, so I am going to write, I think, my first one about semantic fields. That's going to be my first paragraph. My second paragraph is going to be, I want to write about those sentence types. I'm going to do that here, sentences. And I'm going to say that source A actually uses those declarative sentences we talked about, which kind of shows certainty and passion. But remember, I don't want to be using the same quote, so I've got my semantic field of eagerness. That's not the same quote as I knew it in my bones, so that's fine. And then my other one in source B is that asynthetic list. I'm really pleased actually because I felt sad on question 3 that I didn't get to talk about the sentence structure. When we talked about how long the motion of the surfers was, how continuous and fluid it was, and I was saying I feel sad that I've not used the word fluidity. Well, I can change that. So yeah, and that, I think that shows admiration. So again, I'm trying to use emotion words. I'm not going to try and say it shows the surfers are good, because that's not about how she feels. It shows her admiration. It shows his passion. Got to get the feelings and the emotions in. I want to do one on sentence types for sure. And then if I've got time, I'm going to do hyperbole. Yeah, okay. So that's my game plan. And I'm going to stop the video now because what I'm going to let you have time to do is write your answer. It might be that you do the same thing as me, and what I would say is that semantic fields are useful, super, super useful. Almost every text that we read would have some kind of semantic field, and a semantic field shows you exactly what a writer's perspective is because they have used a range of words that all link to the same idea. Therefore, that idea must be important. So I would suggest that we have a go at semantic field, especially if we find question 4 quite tricky. But if you feel like you have done this a lot and you're doing quite well on question 4, maybe your previous mocks have been okay on that, maybe have a go at this sentence type one. Because sometimes we miss out the opportunity to talk about the way that sentence is structured, and we go more at word level. Maybe have a go at this one. Okay, but anything you want to write about is fine. Remember that we've got our cheat sheet here. I've done that. When I'm going to do mine, I'm making sure that I've made the comparison. I've done that here when I've said, right, well, they're both saying it's exciting, or they're both using sentence types to show the positive feelings they have towards surfing. But, right, the first source has a different emotion, for example, threat or danger, because they use this quote, which I can find from my extract. What does that tell me? And then the use of hyperbole reveals that the writer feels a threat or danger. All right, so I'm trying to make my plan as close to that as I can. All right, so I'll stop the video now, and then the next time that I speak, I'll be doing the model answer.